Going live.
All right. All right.
Hold on 1 second while it sits up. All right. So we're up. You can go on and share it. Second while it sits up.
All right.
Uh, copy the link. Hey everybody, what's going on? We got like 6 people in here. Y'all hold tight for me. I'm gonna share this on my page and I hope everyone is doing well. Of course, it's Cimone, Casson, and it is Eric Foster, and we are doing our cash out on cannabis, right? So y'all make sure y'all hit like, share, go on and share that thing for your girl. How you feeling? What's going on?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
Cannot complain. I'm gonna go back over to the main page so that I can man any other questions.
All right.
So if everybody gets a chance, make sure y'all hit like and share because this is going to be a pretty impactful show. I think that this is a show that we all need. It's the buzzword right now, right? So um, one of the things that we're seeing and hearing right now, we're talking about black ownership, we're talking about black investing, we are talking about funds and social equity and racial equity and all of this good stuff that's going on. And I think we really need to break down and kind of help everyone understand not only the opportunity that we're approaching, but some things that we should look out for and some things that we should really be jumping on, and kind of understanding how this whole narrative not only can help us shrink the wealth gap, but also how we can leverage our cultural relationship with money. And y'all hear me talk about that all the time. I think everyone, black, white, green, whatever, has a cultural relationship with money. We do too. It's just that we're consumers, and being consumers is not a bad thing. I think being a consumer is what's going to leverage us in this next nuance and really give us a bargaining chip at the table. The only difference is that before we were consuming depreciating assets, and so now we're looking at consuming appreciating assets. So y'all do me a favor, make sure you hit like, share, go on and share that thing for your girl. And what's going on? What's going on, Eric? I
Well,
missed you.
yeah, I miss you too. I miss you too. There's been a lot. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I'm here to make this thing work because we got a lot of good information we got to get out here. And it's all about being impactful, and that's one of the things I was talking to people. There's too many places where there's communication going on that's nothing about impact. It's people wanting to get together to yell at somebody or say somebody is bad and evil or just talk about nonsensical stuff that rots your brain. We got to stop brain rot, guys. Come on. Brain rot is a bad thing. We need to elevate. And right now, what we're about to talk about, social equity and versus venture capital, and then funding. What are the components of funding and getting your business to where it needs to be? Those are critical because for me personally, as a two-time failed business owner,
Mhm.
there are different things that now I wish I would have known. And mind you, I come from a family of entrepreneurs and people in the corporate sector and governmental sector. That's a blessing. We're a unicorn family. but there was still a whole lot I didn't know, even when you come from a background where it's talked about in the household. So hopefully today will help clear up some things, give y'all some direction, and then go be about the action. Don't just listen and say, oh, that's nice. Be about the follow up, guys. Do the next steps. So let's jump right in. Social equity versus venture capital. So, Simone,
Yeah.
what is your feedback? Because we do see a lot of people
Yeah.
because of social equity and then the whole piece of legacy, application, preferencing, and municipal preferencing. Things like in Grand Rapids or in Muskegon Heights, you got the legacy piece in Detroit.
Mhm.
What does that really mean? And where are people making the mistake of understanding what it means versus, say, venture capital?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to understand is that social equity is in inception is really a discount, right? So if we just kind of broke it down and broke it down to its bare bones, it's really a discount. So although it's the part of the conversation of how do we create equity, meaning ownership, in the Black and Brown community or communities that have been the most disadvantaged to the war on drugs, in that, in basic terms, those municipalities, those states that have created social equity programs, it is a discount. It's not a fund. It's not a. It's not a pathway to wealth. Right, it's a discount, right? So no, it can be leveraged. In addition to that, it's not a business model, right? So that is not a business model having social equity. Social equity simply means that because you meet the qualifications, most of them are a zip code, right?
Right.
So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
Okay. I'll make sure I turn this off because this thing goes off all the day. So, but what that means is it means that you have been deemed a discount on licensing, perhaps real estate, whatever it is. It's a discount, right? So we have to understand that. And with that being said, although there are some opportunities to leverage you obtaining that discount, we have to understand that this is a business like any other business. And so when you want a seat at the table, and y'all hold on now, if you want a seat at the table, in most cases, you're gonna have to bring your own chair, meaning that you're gonna have to bring something there. Nobody's inviting you without having anything. So doing the bare minimum is probably not going to get you into a great situation that's not going to be predatory. So again, making sure that although great initiatives, we appreciate it, but understand what it is. Social equity is a discount, right? Did I answer that?
Yeah, and actually, and guys, so I'm gonna add a couple other things too.
Mm-hmm.
Social equity is also a designation.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm Greek. I'm Mu Omicron Beta Fraternity Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
After I crossed, if I did nothing else, all I have is a determination, is a designation that I am in a Black Greek fraternity. If I don't become active, if I don't pay dues, if I don't try to become active in the membership or leadership, then all I got is a designation. That's what social equity is. It's a designation. It's a step, but it's not a license. In every state that has social equity programming or economic inclusion type programming, you still have to apply separately for your licensing.
Mm-hmm.
In most states that are local control, uncapped market, like Michigan, California, Colorado, you still got to apply in that local community. So it's not the end all be all. And in a lot of places, be it online and on internet's a great thing, but my God, sometimes the internet can steer you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It gives people the impression that, oh, if I just do this one piece, I'm good.
Right.
Are they good, Simone?
No, they're not. And there's so many different levels and so many different layers. And so I think the conversation now has to be very, very real and intentional, right? And I
Yes.
think we really, really have to paint a real clear picture for the individuals who are really seeking to obtain ownership or even employment in the cannabis space. Because the reality of it is that we probably got about 24 months before there becomes major consolidations that will happen. And what that means is that as more and more states and more federal legalization comes, then that allows for the big boys to come in who have already operated in other industries. So to be able to do this and really, really kind of maximize, we have a short window of time, and I'm just being honest with you. I don't want to, I'm not a, I'm sorry, I didn't play with dolls when I was a little girl. I mean, I did. I had Barbie and all that other stuff, but I was more of a Tonka trunk, right? So the whole Cinderella, the fairy slipper, I'm not giving you that. If that's what you're looking for, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna give you the real. I'm gonna give you the honest, and I'm gonna give you some love.
Okay. Now, so here's another thing, because we've been hearing too,
Uh-huh.
folks under the false impression
Yep.
that if I get a social equity designation in Michigan or Massachusetts or Ohio or somewhere else, that then somehow I can leverage this for a big influx of capital, of venture capital.
Okay.
Can you help dispel that in terms of what's real, in terms of what that means, and does it really translate to anything with venture capital, or is there any way to leverage it so that we clear up people's ideas? We want them to be good and make good decisions, not bad decisions.
Right. So great question, right? So can social equity light designation be leveraged? Yes, right? So that is a yes. And I will tell you that there are major corporations who are seeking to obtain ownership in certain municipalities. They definitely want to obtain ownership in municipalities that have possibly been deemed racial equity or social equity. And so there is a position for you to be able to play. Let's put a
Okay.
period in that.
All
But
right.
understand this is that your stake in the company is going to be very, very small in what that looks like. So the more obtain and the more that you obtain and the more stake that you have in any type of company, whether it's marijuana, it could be t-shirts or whatever, the more ownership that you have, the more ownership you're going to be able to obtain. Now, in a lot of these cases, what we're seeing over and over and over is more of a predatory type of situation, where in a lot of cases that the major entities are being able to take on maybe an angel investor or a venture capital type of deal. What does that mean? That means that these are individuals who have larger sums of money, and because of their larger sums of money, they are able to do it under what we consider a Reg D. I'm not going to get too technical, but a private investment where they're able to take on large chunks of your company, right? And so it's like three or four, and they take on large chunks. Now, with that, they take on that discount, but then you become a very a minor partner, right? A limited partner. And they become like the general partner or whatnot. So with that being said, they're actually controlling the entity.
Okay.
If it is your endeavor to not have control and not to be in to really, not to have control of or the ownership, this could be a great opportunity for you. If you are looking to own and be a part of it, what you risk is the ability for them to be able to take you over at any point in time because they own the controlling part. So is there a way for you to leverage? Yes, you can leverage it, but you should be talking to an attorney. You should be talking to an accountant and looking at what that actually will deem as far as what your business model is, how much capital is needed, and what your business projections will be for the very near future in that first year. Did that
Now,
make sense?
no, that's good. And so that actually, because me coming from the corporate sector, A lot of family that are entrepreneurs, but my branch and some of our branches were in the corporate sector.
Okay.
So I worked at the Bartech Group, which
Mhm.
is, I believe, now still the largest African American owned staffing company in the country. Shout out to the
Yep.
Barfields, great family.
Mhm.
That being said, we worked and did a lot with both the National Supplier Diversity Council and the Michigan one, and also Florida and Indiana and Ohio. Isn't that a place where those organizations should be helping the social equity folks so that they don't get taken advantage of in those sort of contracts? Because that reminds me of the joint ventures that you see in the automotive industry,
Mhm.
like Bridgewater Interiors or Bing Steel or others, where you had the big company that would partner with people of color, African American, Mexican Industries was another one, but it was structured in a way that the people of color didn't get taken advantage of. So shouldn't those groups be a part of this conversation to help bridge that gap? Doesn't that make natural sense?
It does, yes, and yes, it does make natural sense, but we gotta understand a couple things, right?
Okay.
So first off, they have to be reached out to, or they're going, that's the way business works. So either somebody's going to reach out to them, or they're going to find a benefit in reaching out to somebody else. Somebody has to bridge the gap. That's the first thing. And
Okay.
so with that, if they feel like this is just not a space that they want to enter in, then we have to understand that's how business works. You know what I mean? Business
Mhm.
works off of opportunities. That's the first thing. The second thing is that to obtain startup capital, in most cases, they're going to hit one of the four things that we talked about earlier, right? So, first of which is going to be a loan, right? So, what's a loan? Someone gives you the money, and then you're able to utilize it and you pay it back with an interest rate, right? Win-win solution. Okay. Next one is going to be in investing. So, what does that mean? I give you money for you to build out your business, and in that you give me stake or share of the company, right? So that I can participate in the wins, but I also will participate in the losses.
Okay.
Okay. Next way is for procurement, is what you were talking about. And this is where entities are able to obtain larger contracts. And how can we do that? That could possibly be by teaming up with a larger company. So let's say this. Let's say I only have the ability to raise 200 or 300 plants, right? But yet and still, I'm able to team up with a larger entity that could be able to give me a larger license that I would be able to do 500 plants, whatever it is, right? So
Okay.
then that would be more of a procurement, offering the opportunities very similar to the automobile industry or whatever. Those major corporations teaming up with those smaller corporations to be able to have the smaller corporations have a relationship and get contracts from larger contracts. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, so the
And then
joint
the
venture.
last one, right? And then the last one is grant. That means, hey, I'm gonna give you the money, you don't have to pay it back. Now, I know that y'all don't want to hear this. Y'all don't. I just want you to know that, but most of the time, grant money is going to be given from a non-for-profit. I know y'all don't want to hear this, but Uncle Sam, Uncle Joe, Aunt Janisa, ain't nobody giving you no free money to start your weed business. Stop inboxing me. Stop calling me. There is no grant for you to start your weed business. Don't do it. Don't do it. If nobody's giving you free money to start your weed business, if somebody tell you that, they're lying to you. Now, there is funding.
Right.
There is
California is a
funding.
good
But
example.
there's a difference. I
Having
done
some
had
of
so
that.
many people reach out to me. Can you tell me about the weed grant? Well, hell, can you tell me? Because it don't exist.
Right. And now, just to add some context to that, folks, the reason why it doesn't on a federal level, now you've heard of grants that come out of, say, the Department of Transportation
Mm-hmm.
or transit projects. The Q line in Detroit is a good example. It
Mm-hmm.
got some federal funding to help with startup costs.
Right.
You hear of grants in energy space, the
Mm-hmm.
solar companies, the wind companies, and the
Yep.
like. So guys, the reason why you're not going to get federal grants is because this is still illegal federally, even though you have the allowances for states to do it. At a state level, in most states, this isn't tied to their economic development activity.
Mhm.
Outside of California and Illinois, so far, you don't really have even a state pot that's really allocated towards helping with startup costs.
Right.
So that's another dynamic. So really, guys, the grant space is not an option, like Cimone said, at this time, and it's not going to be an option for multiple years.
And understand though, it is there are funds, but understand, we're going to dissect and tell you what the difference of that is. So the grant space, no, is not there, but there is funds, and like you mentioned, there's a fund in Illinois, right? So the big boys were able to put in their applications first, and then they were able to create a fund that minorities will be able to dip in to be able to solidify their startups and some of their licenses and a host of other things. So there is a difference, and we're going to talk about what the difference of all of these are, because I think that they're very, very important. All four of these uh, initiatives, investing, procurement, grants, and loan, all of them can be really, really great. And all of them can be really, really bad. The instance is whether or not what it works for you, right? And what works for your actual business model. And I think as we're having this conversation of building wealth, it is not cookie cutter. When I was when I worked when I was managing money, one of the things that I would always say is that nobody's portfolio should look exactly the same, right? When we go in and I look at forensics for the financial statements or whatever at companies or whatever, nobody should look the same. Everyone's business model is different. And if we're going to have this conversation of bridging the gap of generational wealth, and being able to bridge this gap of being able to invest, we have to understand that moving forward is going to look like different for everybody. So the one that worked for your buddy might not work for you, right? And we got to know what the differences are.
Right. Exactly.
Cool.
So let's dive into a little bit on the loan side.
Candy. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know Candy. I don't know if y'all know Candy, but Candy is the love of my life, and she's being a little disruptive. So go ahead.
Candy may, at a future segment, Candy may have some things to add to the
Add value.
conversation
She might. She might. She
animals are getting a whole lot smarter, and I think they're gonna start participating in normal adult conversations.
Oh my, well, I think Candy might be one of the first ones. But go ahead, babe. So go ahead. What's the next
let's jump into loan.
Before we go on, y'all make sure y'all hit like, share. This is great information. If you have any questions, please let us know. And then if you are looking at wanting to find out more information about the Michigan boot camp that we have going on, this is going to be extremely impactful. So we want to make sure that you can go into the link and find that out. And then also you can inbox me or Eric if you want to find out more about the Michigan local marijuana stock exchange. Cool. Go ahead. All right, and I'm done.
So let's jump into the loan segment. And so we know that nationally, you've got about roughly 11% of the banks and credit unions nationally that are doing business with marijuana-related businesses. Mostly, though, that's on the depository side and the like. It's not a lot of loan or lending, but there are some. So kind of talk a little bit about that lane, how that lane works in a general sense, and then the application to the commercial marijuana industry.
Cool. So pretty much in a nutshell, let's break down how banks make money. Banks make money off of their spread. Pretty much what happens is, okay, do y'all get it? Y'all, all right, you know how if you do more than 6 transfers from your savings account a month, they turn it into a checking account or they close it. There's a reason for it. Want to know why? Because if you have more, if it's not sitting in there, you do more than 6, they can't count the money that's in the checking account because that's going to be moved in and out. I'm just giving y'all the dummy version.
Mhm.
And so, but what they can count is what they got in savings, CDs, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Right.
So they can put that in reserve. And so what the reserve, the federal banks or the charter bank says, hey, you have this much money under assets. So you can lend out a percentage of that. And from lending, you can charge interest. And that's how banks make money. Period. Everything else that they do, they make money off of fees and interest. It's the spread. So you got your savings, you got your CD, and then they say, hey, you know what I mean? Okay, I got $100 CD. I like round numbers. And they say, okay, cool. So you can lend out to about 40 to 50% of that. And so they say, okay, cool. We're gonna give Eric $40, but we're gonna charge Eric 4%. So we're gonna give him $40, and then we're going to get, and then he's going to pay us the $40 back, and then he's going to pay us $4, and that's going to be in our pocket, and that's how they make money. Oh, now with that being said, a couple other things have been happening. One, situations where, of course, we only can have lending go to marijuana companies as a whole, or even deposit. I take that back. Deposits. Sorry, I'm not even gonna say lending. Deposits as a whole. In the marijuana industry, you have to be a charter bank, right? So that takes off every federal bank. So what that means is when you walk into your bank, and if you see FDIC, means federally deposit whatever insurance, y'all go with me. So if you see that, that bank is totally excluded from participating in marijuana. Boom. The only banks that can be able to do it are going to be state chartered banks. That's your credit unions, like your local banks, your community banks can participate in it. So where does that space look like for Black banks? Well, one of the things is that we're seeing now with one bank in Greenwood, we've seen an increase in deposits. And the more deposits that these banks have, the more ability that they have to be able to participate in lending for people of color, period, right? Because they're holding a narrative. They're being able to underwrite, and they're being able to say, hey, yo, this is what we're going to give. This is what it looks like to create our curriculum, or what we deem under our underwriters, for someone to be able to obtain a loan. Boom. Now, next thing is, what are we looking at, and what's the big problem with marijuana? Well, the issue with marijuana is that there is a credit act that allows for creditors to come after you, right? And so that is actually a federal act. It's not a state act. And so understand this. I always tell y'all, it's only two streets that mean anything. That's Main Street and Wall Street. So there's an actual creditors act, which is a federal act, which allows banks and other creditors and entities to go after individuals when they don't pay a loan. Right? That's how you can get civil suits and all that other stuff. Well, because marijuana is not legal federally, anybody that does a loan under a marijuana underwriting, they're really taking the risk. And under a whole lot of laws, they can't actually go after them traditionally. So that has been a big sore thumb. Now, are there other entities and underwriters and loan opportunities that are taking bigger risks? Yes, they are. And what they are doing, though, they are offering a higher interest rate. So as a business owner, you have to decide what's going to be the best business model for you. Are you willing to take on a loan that's going to have a higher interest rate, right? But do you and still be able to participate? And then also, as people of brown and Black, we have to be able to encourage our deposits in these Black and brown companies so that we can be able to encourage them to take a little bit more risk, not just on the marijuana companies, but in Black-owned businesses as a whole.
So, Simone, I do want to add something though when you talk
Mhm.
about the bank dynamic, because per the 2014 BSA, which is the Bank Secrecy Act, the FinCEN, which is the financial crime sector of the Department of Treasury, their guidance on doing business with marijuana companies. They laid out a criteria of how banks can do that, which was then backed up in 2015 by the Federal Reserve on depository activities. So they did it later in February of 2015.
Mhm.
So you do have in some states, some FDIC banks that are doing business out of the 11%.
Mhm.
But I also wanted to say minority banks. So right now, we've got roughly 20 Black-owned banks per the Federal Reserve and the Department of Treasury. And we got 252 Black-owned credit unions that collectively have about collectively had 9 billion in deposit assets.
Mhm.
But could that not be could the marijuana industry not be an opportunity for those banks to be able to do more and to be able to grow by working with businesses of color, with Black licensees in other states and the like, in terms of being able to grow their deposits? Because you're right, 9 billion sounds like a lot,
But
but
it's
when
not
you compare that to, say,
right.
JP Morgan Chase,
Yeah,
which is
it's very small.
multi-trillion dollar
Yeah.
company, in its deposits, 9 billion ain't a lot.
Right. So as I said before, one of the ways that we can help them make better decisions is by increasing deposits, right? So the more money that they have, the more that they have as a risk. You got to remember. So if you guys follow me, and this, mind you, if we're talking on a macro level or on a micro, yeah, micro level or macro level, whichever way that we're talking, it doesn't really change. So one of the things that when you look at this, what's suitable? What's the risk tolerance? So you got to understand banks have a board of directors. Right. So it's not like, I know y'all watch, you might watch like the commercials or the TV shows, and there's like this big guy that's sitting back there and he's making up. No, it don't work like that, baby. There is a whole board of directors and people that have to answer to, right? In addition to that, what I explained to you before is that they make their money off of the spread, right? So when there's a certain amount of what we call doubtful accounts, right? So these are accounts that we know we about to give you this money and we ain't gonna see it back, right? All right. And so with that, those banks have to have a risk tolerance that meets this. So you're talking about an emerging industry. You're talking about an industry that the other thing is that these banks have to be, although they are not included, their Federal Reserve is still the Federal Reserve, right? So you do know when you go to your bank, you're not visiting your money, you're visiting your loan, right? Your loan is there, but your money ain't there, right? And so when you're looking at all of those nuances, you're looking at the board of directors, right? You're making a decision. You're looking at deposits that are not as large as what we consider like a Chase or a Fifth Third or whatever it is that you're utilizing. All of these different things are making it more riskier for these struggling banks
Correct.
already operate. So how do we help? And as I said before, us being consumers can be leveraged, right? And there's a couple ways where I want to talk about why it is important for us to be consumers and why it is important. So what can we do? Buy more appreciating assets. What does that look like? Put your money where your mouth is. Go and actually deposit money into these banks. And as constituents and as clients and customers, you can go in and make demands and say, hey, listen, it's, if you're not going to start doing this, I'm going to take my money up out of here.
And if I can add to that, guys, some data points. So just on African American community, not including other communities of color, in 2019, we had 1.029 trillion in aggregate household income, aggregate income
Yeah.
that we made from work, from Social Security, from whatever. The business side of our 2.7 million businesses, they had 178.5 billion in sales, the Black businesses around the country. Our Black banks only have 9 billion in deposits. So 1.1 trillion in income and 178 billion in business revenue.
Right.
We could do a little bit better with our Black banks. Come on, guys.
Yeah, and I think that there is a big opportunity, but I think right now we have the right song at the right time at the right place, right?
So let's
And so we're able to really, really have these conversations and really create pathways to be able to shrink the wealth gap. In addition to that, we're able to actually participate, and I don't, and so we have never seen this before. We've never had an emerging industry where the government actually recognized that there needs to be an opportunity for us. Can we agree to that?
yes.
Right, so whether, I mean, since the beginning of time, hell, they ain't do this with cotton. You know what I mean?
Right.
They ain't do this with cotton.
Or
So
tobacco or anything.
they didn't do it. They didn't do it with cotton. They didn't do it with bootlegging. With alcohol. They didn't do it with tech. They didn't do it with nothing else but this, right? And so, what do we have? Let's look at these great nuances that we have. We have God and Google, right? So I got this supercomputer in my pocket. I can actually, y'all. Do y'all know how many deals I make without even moving? Going to my computer, right? You know what I mean? I can go in and I can show y'all my cryptocurrency, honey. So you know what I mean? All of these things from my phone. In addition to that, we have although still many hurdles to climb, right?
Right.
It's not over with, but at least having the conversation where this is an emerging industry that has come about, and then the government has said, deemed that, okay, these people need this, these groups of individuals or group of people should be able to participate in a way, and there is a conversation and some pathways that are being there. We still got a long way to go, right?
Right.
Not taken away from that. Last but not least, we are now in a position where we are having the conversation of wealth and not income. And so what that means is that Jim Crow, turn of the century, we were having conversations about surviving, right?
Right.
Once after the Civil Rights Act and everything else and affirmative action, we were having conversations about, and then after that, it was conversations about income. Then we went into conversations about education. We had never, as a people, had a conversation about wealth. That's never been an attainable thing, right? We never thought about that. So we thought about income, we thought about education, right?
Correct.
Survival, income, and education. Now we're in a position now that all of these entities and all of these things that were built wealth building, now we can actually learn them and obtain them. Not only can we learn them and obtain them, we can do them very easily.
Okay.
Right?
So let's dovetail now into the investing side
Okay.
and how that works, because that can tie into things like the Michigan Marijuana Stock Exchange and the like. But considering last year in
Mhm.
a COVID environment,
Yes.
the gross sales in
Mhm.
Michigan
Yep.
for commercial marijuana, medical and recreational,
Mhm.
was 960 million,
Mhm.
with limited retail in terms of going into the stores.
Mhm. Yes.
960,
Mhm.
450 million in medical
Yep.
and 510 in recreational. So we know next year we're going to probably hit, if we get the COVID under control, we could hit 1.5 billion or
Yep.
more. So investing, let's dovetail into that, because how do we plug investing in to give Black and brown people that pathway and that portal to be able to, I mean, that doorway to be able to get into the business, get into the industry?
Okay, so I want to answer this in two parts, right? So the
Okay.
first part of my answer is not going to really answer your question, but you'll understand where I'm going by and by. That's what my grandmother used to say, right? All right, so let's talk about what COVID means. And so, one of the big things that I hear a lot of the corporations are what would I confused? No, they're mad about it. I'm just gonna tell you they mad, but I shut them down, y'all. I get them real together. And so when we talk about COVID and we talk about our seat at the table, and again, I say all the time, and this is going to be twofold. using our cultural relationship with money to build our seat at the table. Being a consumer, y'all, is not a bad thing if you do it right. All right. So one of the conversations I recently had with a team of CEOs, right? So y'all check this out. So this is a team of CEOs. All of them are Class D, stackable, which is the highest level of licenses or plants that you can have. And so we ended up having this conversation, and they were telling me about the black market, the black market, the black market. And I said, okay, well, one, and they were like, the state needs to control. And I was like, well, that's not really how it goes. That's the municipality. You paying the wrong people. So let's just go with that. So anyway, as we had this conversation, I came up with them and I said, so let me ask you, who's your marketing team? And they were like, I said, how many people are in your marketing team? And they said, oh, we got like 8. And I said, you got 8 people. And I said, right. I said, so how many of those individuals have created, how much of your marketing budget have you created that went to targeting Black women? And they said, none. And I said, so you got 8 people and on this team, and you probably paying them about 75 to $100,000 a year. Yeah. And he said, yeah. I said, okay, so here's the deal. Go and fire all of them. So I just saved you $800,000. Because if your team was not smart enough to actually create a plan to target the most influential spenders in the United States, and you still paying them $100,000, I got a bridge in Brooklyn you can buy.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first thing that you need to understand, that us being able to be leveraged as consumers is very, very important. As we're getting out of this post-COVID or hopefully or whatever, then of course the conversation is going to look different, right? And so COVID, let's look at, and the reason why I'm saying this about African American women is that, honey, we don't play no games. So understand this: if you think that Day Day is going to be able to invite me over to his house, we Netflix and chill, and he pull out a baggie of weed, not post COVID. Sisters ain't playing that no more. You know what I'm saying? They're not waiting for you in the alley and all this other stuff. Everybody wants something in a pretty package. They want to make sure that it's clean and everything else. And more, the most influential consumer group, African American, which I am very proud to be a part of. They are still smoking. They are smoking weed. They're using it. There's more leveraging of herbal supplements. That is very, very important in our community. African American are more women are being more and more focused on being health conscious. They are looking for more and more alternatives to pharmaceuticals. And last but not least, y'all know it is a whole slew of sisters that's out here burning sage, incense, weed, crystals, and everything else. So if these corporations cannot figure out how to tap in and to talk to us, then I hope it works out for them. That's the first thing. And we can leverage that seat at the table. And how do we do that? We do that by supporting the brands who support us via social media and a host of other things. That's the first thing. The next thing is as I said, because of COVID, and because of this newness that we have and this computer that we have in our pocket, investment opportunities are a great thing, right? So we know that this is an emerging market. We know that this is an industry, but understand that everybody is not going to be an entrepreneur. So some people will be great consumers. Other people will also, in addition to that, not just be great consumers, but in addition to that, be able to be employees. So we got entrepreneurship, consumers, and employees. What does that mean to us? What does that mean to us? It means great opportunities in investing. So as we see this industry grow, what do we need to do? We need to be able to create opportunities. And that's why we have the Michigan marijuana market.
Okay. So, and your first point makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
If you, as a potential company
Yeah.
that wants to attract investors, can demonstrate that you can grow market share, if you first you know who the biggest consumer group is in terms of influencers,
Yeah.
spenders of disposable income, and then you can get market share within that group, that makes you much more attractive
Exactly.
for somebody to park
Mhm.
10,000, 20,000, 50,000 in buying shares into your company.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I mean, because at the end of the day, the targeted market that most of the dispensaries and the entities are looking at are baby boomers, and I mean that is the growing number. But let me just say, I mean, you selling old in the bottle. They're going to not be here in the near future. But yet and still, if you can be able to target African American women who are great consumers, but what we have decided is that you are going to speak directly to us, or you're not going to speak to us at all.
Simone, let me ask you a question. Would it be a fair assumption to say, after African American women, that other target audiences still include women? So, say, his Latino women, Asian
Yeah.
women, that really your growth is going to be with women in different ethnicity groups in terms of spending, even in the Arabic community with more second, third generation women that are Americanized. Would that make sense that women are going to be your primary, your first core market that you have to demonstrate you can make it with?
Well, now I wouldn't. I'm not really sure about Arabic women because I don't know what their cultural relationship is with marijuana, right? But I do know culturally, um, it's black and brown women. Right now that they smoke about the same amount as white or white women, right? So we know that that's there. Right. So we know that
Okay.
that's a balance. I don't know what the percentage of for Arabic women, but with that being said, I do know that there is a tone amongst us, right, which is really about being holistic. Health is health and wellness, alternative, universe, and sage, and a host of other things. And so, not having a conversation with this particular group is crazy, right? So if
Okay.
I was a new business, that would be the targeted market where I would be looking to sustain and grow. I mean, that's easy math.
Okay.
So if they're not being able to do that, are we going to be able to eliminate the black market? You still got bootlegging.
Yes, you do.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
you do.
I know around the corner, not too far from my house, I can go over there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and go get me a little nip if I wanted to, right? So I don't think that I don't think that the objective is to remove the black market. I think after COVID it will shrink because people want they want clean, they want safety. So, but you have to talk to the right group.
Right. And I agree with you on that. I think I'm a student of politics, a student of Chicago politics, Mayor Daley from the old Mayor Daley.
Look, I
'75.
know.
And
Everybody
the
knows that's home
thing,
for me.
and the thing that I understood about that level of politics was corruption was always going to be there. It was, can you use corruption for good?
Right. And can you leverage it? Right.
And
And
can
can
you
you
leverage it?
control it and
So,
minimize it or whatever? And so that's going to be the same thing that we're going to see in different states, period. Um,
as I'm not advocating for corruption or crime, but
right.
just saying that it's always going to be
It
there
will always
in
be there. Yeah.
every industry, even in hell, even in traditional industries. You got in the automotive industry, people
Yeah.
pirate parts and people steal car
You can't, right.
technology.
You know what I
So come
mean? Chop
on.
shops, you can't get away from it. And so if you're focused on that, then you're never going to make it to the next thing. The other thing is that, like we said, with God and Google, having the opportunities to be able to invest. And so, of course, as you guys have heard me talk many times about it, Eric and I were both jobbed with being chair people for the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency, and we came up with us and 25 other great professionals were able to come up with 16 initiatives to be able to create tangible pathways for racial equity in the racial equity program. And what that really means and breaks down to is creating not just putting fluff and saying, okay, you get a discount for being in racial equity or social equity. What kind of pathways and initiatives would be able to bridge that gap? and really kind of get from not entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, but also tackling employment and consuming, right? And so I think all of that embodies equity, social equity. With that being said, one of the things that we were able to come up with is the Michigan marijuana regular no the Michigan marijuana market. I'm sorry. All of these, it's the INFA, or I like to call it the market, right? And so it's an actual stock exchange that I'm actually creating a blueprint for and the architect for, which will be a infrastructure very similar to the NASDAQ and everything else. I've done so many interviews and they always ask me and they say, oh, I thought it was just a crowdfunding portal. Let me tell you why it's not. One, it's not because it's will be supported by the state. But why it's not is because I am a firm believer that why shouldn't racial equity racial equity program people or investors who are looking to participate in their neighborhood, why shouldn't you have a full infrastructure like somebody else, right? So what does that look like? These businesses will have to be vetted in. They will meet qualifications. So it's not like you're just investing in a fly by night. We are creating a pathway that does not leverage for get rich quick schemes. In addition to that, there is no investing portal or investing vehicle that does not have pathways. So in essence, I'm creating the NASDAQ for the state of Michigan in marijuana businesses that are minorities, right? So this is very, very exciting. I'm so excited about everything that's going on, and that will be a way for people to be able to participate. Michigan, it's only for Michigan residents. The businesses have to have 80% of their revenue in the state of Michigan. Michigan residents, if you have $100,000 or more in income, you can invest up to $10,000. The businesses that are listed on there on the stock exchange will not be able to be listed on anything else. You stay there for 12 months. After 12 months, you have the ability to raise up to $1 million. So that allows people in their neighborhoods to buy back into their neighborhood and have and then for those businesses to be able to keep it about 50% of their actual business. So we are solving social equity and investing opportunities and buying back in our hood.
Right. And the good thing about that, guys, is as Cimone said, it is going to be a regulated market
Yes.
with the full structure that you would find with the Chicago Commodity Exchange,
Mm-hmm.
NASDAQ, or with
Yep.
UK in Japan or other exchanges. And
Mm-hmm.
that is something different. So stay in that lane of understanding that this is a real investment model
Right.
for businesses to list themselves and to be able to acquire capital the right way.
The right one. The right.
So let's dovetail in because we got a
Mhm.
few more minutes left because
Yep.
we started a little bit late, so we'll make
Yeah.
it go up for an hour.
Yep.
We have something coming up in a couple weeks
Yeah.
that is a pathway to show people how to pursue one of the license types in Michigan, but it also is going to give them an understanding of the general structural aspects of how to pursue any license type. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the Minorities for Medical Marijuana and Michigan marijuana regulatory agencies Michigan Cannabis License Boot Camp. So,
Yep.
Simone, tell a little bit about that, and that's coming up. How people can get involved, how they can participate or buy tickets to come to the boot camp, and what it's going to cover.
Cool. So it's March 13th and 14th, both all day events. And so I'm so excited because one couple things we wanted to do. And I think this is imperative for there to be a successful market where everybody wins. And I think it's really going to be us bridging that gap between um, the state, corporations, and the community, right? And so I think all of those entities have their own initiatives, but then there's also a lot of miseducation that is coming out and it's trickling down to the community, right? And so for me, I really wanted to create, well, M4MM actually created this platform, right? So they have been doing the boot camp. I believe we're number 4, right? And so Roz, hey Miss Roz, how you doing, Queen? So Roz came up with this idea of finding out what the different states needed because every state was different. And so she allowed Eric and I to kind of take the ball and do what we needed to do for Michigan. So with that being said, we created a team of speakers, right? That is amazing. I'm so humbled that everybody wants to participate, and we're getting more and more people that are coming in. So we have the MRA, Mr. Desmond Mitchell and Jennifer Biggett. Desmond Mitchell is the head of Laura for the marijuana sector. So he'll be talking about really deep diving what the racial equity program is in Michigan. And then Jennifer will be talking about, she's the head of adult use licensing, what that's going to require. Next, we have Mr. Barton Morris, who will be deep diving into what the legal part is. You got to pay your lawyer. You got to pay your lawyer. It is so important. We also have a team that will panel of growing, cultivating, and testing. If you can't get that stuff out of here and it be tested, there's nothing, right? So that's going to be very, very important. In addition to that, we have what's the next one?
We have real estate.
Yep, real estate. You're gonna be colored. Yeah, we have real estate. What else do we have? Oh, real estate, and then
Accounting, yeah,
and then accounting. And
accounting.
then, yep, accounting. And then the next day, we're going to talk about the difference between predatory contracts, as we kind of touched on today a little bit, but predatory contracts versus
Actual real joint venture
joint ventures. Okay,
relationships.
right,
When you're
right. I had a
really
brain
in a
fire.
joint venture partnership.
Yeah. And then we will have a pitch deck also, where individuals will be able to pitch their ideas to potential investors. So this is going to be 2 of the most impactful days, but everything that you need to know to be able to get into the game. So it's going to be awesome.
And then 2 other things too on that. We're going to have municipal licensing and what that looks like. Because
Yep.
in Michigan, you have to get licensed at the municipal level. And we're
Mhm.
also going to have supply chain management, vendor procurement, and how that impacts your pricing and product development and your bottom line.
Yep.
Because that's an important thing in any business.
Yep.
Is who are your suppliers? Are you getting the best price for your products and goods and services? So we're going to give you the roadmap for what you need to do. Now, people, we need y'all to act. We need y'all to do something with it. Don't get stuck in analysis by paralysis and don't do anything. If you want to do something, there's many pathways. And this year, we're going to continue to talk about them in our monthly segments here. We're going to do more of these sorts of boot camps and activities. The Racial Equity Task Force is going to be doing programming. There's a lot of information out here. Y'all got to actually do something with it. Don't sit there and say, well, why isn't it just some easy roadmap? There never is an easy roadmap.
Yep.
And when Cimone was playing with Tonka toys, I was playing with my army toys, but I wasn't playing with little skirmishes. I was recreating D-Day and the Western Europe campaign, the Eastern Europe campaign. I was all in because I wanted to figure out the bigger picture. So guys, you gotta go all in. If you're gonna do this, go all in. You can do this.
Yep.
Just start the actions. That's my wrap up.
All right. Well, it's been a fabulous show. I think we've gotten a lot of information out there. I looked to see if we have, let's see, India. No, we don't have any. Do we have any questions before we stab up out of here?
And we just had one about coming to Ohio.
Yeah, I answered that one. We will definitely send that information up. Of course, I'm Cimone Casson. This is Eric Foster. You are tuned in to Cash Out on Cannabis. And so we definitely enjoyed you guys. This was an amazing show. If you are in Michigan, make sure you reach out to us, or you can go to the InfoMM organization where we put that in there to find out more information about what we're doing. Next month we will be back here. If you get a chance, we're doing the boot camp, so definitely find out about that. But of course, we know that InfoMM is a national, I'm sorry, global brand. So definitely, we will have more guests that are from other states and definitely be able to give you more information. The individual that said, "Can you do a boot camp in Ohio?" I'm gonna send that up the flagpole, and we'll see what happens for you. I know that we do have a chapter there. We are in 27 states, not including, oh, in Jamaica and yeah, in Jamaica, right? But we have Hawaii and a host of other ones. So big ups and much love to the InfoMM team. Eric, you were fabulous today.
Well, thank you, Simone. You were as well. We
Well,
will
thank
be
you.
back next month in April. Spoiler
In
alert,
April.
April is my birthday month. And so the national holiday that has not been declared, but will be declared at some point,
Love
April
it, love it, love it,
21st,
love it, love it.
5:30 a.m. is when
Uh-huh.
I came into this work. I tried to ask them to spell my name Erick, but they didn't really
They
understand
did,
what I
they
was
did, they couldn't
saying.
get it.
I was too advanced for the doctors at that time.
Okay,
My
okay.
mom was in a lot of pain. It's just how life was, but we figured it out later on.
I love
So
it.
come back next month with us. And this young lady here, Simone, is a rock star because what she's been able to bring to this space in terms of professionalism, but also bigger picture thinking. This is what we needed here in Michigan. This is what's going to take the opportunities because it's also supply chain too. Banks and company, we're not licensees. We provide services to companies as an
Mhm.
African American firm. So you can be a vendor without being a licensee, guys. It's a
Yeah.
lot of opportunity. So we're
Like,
going to bring it in April throughout the rest of this year, and God be willing, in the 2022 to keep bringing y'all up to the right level.
well, thank you so much. I'm so I don't know what to say. You didn't say these kind words. You ain't even had me give you no money or nothing. How sweet is that? I almost believed you. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. We'll see everybody next month. And Eric, you hang out for me in a minute, and we're gonna get up out of here. I love you
All
guys
right,
like I love
guys.
myself. Cool.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Um. No, 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 no. I want to. If I end the meeting, does that put us?